Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everyone to this forum today, March 18, 2026. The Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute is holding a symposium entitled China's 2026 Two Sessions, Embracing Opportunities. We also have two guest speakers, one from China, Tsinghua University, Dr. Li Zi, Assistant Dean for China's Institute for Development Planning. He'll be joining us via Zoom. And following him, will be Dr. Henry Chan, based in Singapore. He's a distinguished visiting fellow at the Cambodia Center for Regional Studies. He earned his PhD in General Management from Singapore Management University 2017. But before that, I'd like to invite everyone, if you have any questions for our speakers, please leave them in the comment section in Facebook, in YouTube, or in the Zoom if you're joining us. Again, thank you everyone watching us live, and again, after the replay. But first, the forum will be opened by Mr. Herman Laurel. He's the president of Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies, and he will be giving a talk on the two sessions entitled Positioning the Philippines in China's 2026 to 2030 Economic Plans, Lessons from the Two Sessions, and how the Philippines can gain or benefit from this. Let's welcome Kamintong Laurel for his opening remarks.
Magandang araw po sa lahat ng ating mga live stream viewers at ang ating replay viewers. Katya, how? Good morning to everyone. We are aware that the Filipinos are just focused on the immediate crisis confronting them, worried about their daily needs, and the prospects of this crisis being resolved as soon as possible, that they have very little time to discuss these other vital global issues that are essential to the Philippines' welfare. So we endeavor to bring these issues to you and to discuss it in the context of the interests of the Filipino nation. We're discussing today the just concluded two sessions of China, which they conduct every year for planning of their economy and their society. And we have the two speakers already introduced by our moderator, Danny Long. But I want to put everything in context under the title, Positioning the Philippines in China's 2026-2030, the next 5-year plan, economic plan. Lessons from the two sessions. Let me open by providing you a background from Xinhua News, a 5-minute video on what the two sessions is, because very little is known in the Philippines and among Filipinos about the two sessions. So this is from a perspective of a foreign and a domestic reporter in China. Let's view the video. Mapapanood ba doon sa kabila? Lipat ka na dito. At least the lady. Okay, let's roll the film. Let's roll the video.
What is China's One Way? Looking back, now Way might just be one of the most important places that I've learned. Everything is major. China literally joining close attention from around the world.
Rainfall of the peaceful initiative to cover the three sessions. These annual gatherings bring together around 3,000 lawmakers and 2,000 political parties. Today, the only day of the two sessions, while the three sessions already yesterday.
The two sessions are key to understanding China's development, how the political system works, and where the country is headed. These meetings shape policy that affect not just China, but also the entire world. And global media are watching closely several key areas, which include the growth target, the 15-5-year plan, China's next moves in tech and innovation. So what can we expect from this year's two sessions? Well, we'd love to hear what's going on the ground.
The Japanese passage where lawmakers take questions on the issues that matter most to the public, from economic development and technological innovation to education and social welfare. I can see the lawmakers and political advisors making their way into the venue. They come from diverse and even China's smallest representation. This year's two sessions are especially important. A major focus of the NPC session is the review of a draft outline for the 15-5-year plan. 2025 from 2026 to 2030.
China's 5-year plans are a defining feature
of its governance. And personally, I'm keeping a close eye on technology. Across China, AI is becoming part of everyday life, from healthcare and traffic management to weather forecasting and farming. As tech and innovation transform industries nationwide, I expect they'll also take the spotlight during this year's two sessions.
We are pleased to have with us an NPC deputy from Fujian province who works in the tech industry.
近年来，我国在科技领域的创新成果非常丰硕。我们目前中国新能源产业链在全球是处于领先地位的。我们也实现了从跟跑到领跑的跨越式的提升，为全球的新能源发展提供了巨大的机遇。
To some extent, observing China's two sessions is essentially observing the Chinese economy. A key task of these annual meetings is to map out the country's economic plan, setting the growth target, approving macroeconomic policies, and signaling priorities. Let's see what the government work report tells us about this year's direction and the trajectory beyond.
Right now, I am in the media area on the second floor. Over 3,000 journalists from home and abroad are covering this year's two sessions. China's annual growth target will be reviewed in the government work report, one of the most anticipated announcements each year. The Premier will be delivering the report shortly. Chinese Premier Li Qiang delivered the government work report on behalf of the State Council at the opening meeting of the fourth session of the 14th NPC. The report highlights past achievements and sets development targets for the present year. It also unveils the country's key goals for the 2026 to 2030 period.
People's livelihoods continue to be a top priority for Chinese policy makers. They consistently work to strike a balance between economic growth and social development, steadily improving the quality of life for all citizens. One interesting aspect of the two sessions is that journalists have the chance to communicate with senior government officials face to face.
The Minister's Passage is one of the most sought-after spots here. Reporters have to arrive early to secure a front-row position. At this year's first Minister's Passage, the Minister of Science and Technology, the Minister of Industry and Information Technology, and the head of the State-Owned Asset Supervision and Administration Commission of the State Council addressed topics such as industrial growth, technological innovation, and AI applications.
What a great way to experience the two sessions. These meetings offer more than just policy announcements. They provide a vivid window into the practical operations of China's whole process people's democracy.
Other major items on this year's agenda include deliberations on 3 draft laws. Each carries significant weight. And a quick heads up for viewers, in the coming days we will have a series of highly anticipated press conferences, including appearances from key ministers. We will be there. Follow Xinhua for the latest.
So we get a view of how serious governance is conducted by one of the world's largest nation. And well, that is the first lesson for today. How serious are our own legislators and government people in planning the future of our nation? But let me just now focus on the paper I prepared. There are some clerical errors in paper, but just bear with me. So events in West Asia, the Middle East, portend major tectonic changes that will alter the course of mankind's next 100 years. The 500 years of Western hegemony is ending, and the new multipolar world is unquestionably unfolding as the coming global order. We have Iran, the ancient civilization of Persia, China and Russia to thank. I missed that in the paper. To thank, please add that. To thank for finally succeeding in evicting the US, the United States, and its Western allies from West Asia. That will also collapse the dollar hegemony, ushering a new global monetary structure architecture free from the control of any single country. The global majority today has gained greater economic political capabilities to judge what is best for its own welfare. And it is going with a new global coalition of powers, guaranteeing compliance with the United Nations system, subject, of course, to reforms. The Philippines today is caught between the rock of the Western hegemony and the hard place of the consolidating New World multipolar order. We in the Asian Century Philippines Strategic Studies Institute, Inc. endeavor to assist in opening the eyes of the country to the categorical imperative for the nation to jump in with the new forces reshaping the global order. At the center of that decision is to start re-engaging totally and fully with the heart of the global momentum towards the multipolar world. That heart is China, which just concluded its 15th five-year planning in its recent 2 sessions and announced its economic plan for 2026 to 2030. We discussed with experts from China and Singapore the prospects of the Philippines embracing the opportunities to return to growth and prosperity with China's economic miracle. The Philippine crisis today. The Philippines plunged into the precipice of deep economic political crisis the moment in February 2023 when its government confirmed, quote unquote, its pivot back to neo-colonialist America by accepting additional US military bases, adopting the quote unquote assertive transparency strategy injected by the United States, canceling agreed upon cooperation projects with China, alienating Russia by siding with Ukraine. These grievous errors are now coming home to roost for the current government faced with fuel and fertilizer supply crisis, an 18 trillion plus mounting debt, and a host of economic shocks too many to list here. And where does the solutions lie in re-engaging with the enemy or enemy nations of America? That is China and Russia, and the countries associated with that bloc. Meanwhile, friends of America's rivals, China and Russia, like Vietnam, are zooming ahead. I just want to show 2 graphs to highlight how far behind we are because of our alienation from China, from Russia, and other countries of the bloc. This is one graph from Southeast Asia metropolis showing the top growth economies of ASEAN, with Vietnam at 8.02% in 2025. Indonesia 5.11%, Malaysia 4.9%, Singapore, of course, with a very large economy already at 4.8%. The Philippines is, I have a second chart to show, which you have a paper, at 4.4% ahead of Thailand. Thailand has some internal problems. The next graph is the richest countries in Southeast Asia, measured by GDP per capita, because this is another measure to highlight where the Philippines stand relative to other countries in ASEAN in terms of productivity. Singapore, of course, is number 1. Brunei, of course, is number 2 because of its oil wealth. Malaysia, number 3. Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, but the Philippines is at number 7, just ahead of Cambodia, Laos, Timor-Leste, and Myanmar. That is not a proud place to be for the Philippines, which is one of the most populous countries in Southeast Asia with 120 million population. I think second only to size in population to Indonesia, one of the older nation states of Southeast Asia. And we're falling behind Vietnam very clearly. So this is just to highlight the economic crisis that the Philippines faces and why we must focus on the opportunities that China's growth path presents for the Philippines. Now, I was thinking of hurrying to add some of the latest developments, which indeed is showing the way towards re-engaging with China. Of course, everybody knows about the efforts of the Department of Tourism to restart the e-visa for Chinese visitors, electronic visa, and the 2-week free visa-free visits for Chinese nationals traveling to the Philippines. The latest is the meeting between Ambassador Tsinghua of the Chinese Embassy with the Department of Energy in the midst of this present crisis. So we can see the Philippine government opening up to the Chinese Embassy. Of course, previous to this is the meeting of the announcement of the re-establishment of direct Chongqing flights, I think.
Fujian, Cebu.
Fujian, Cebu, and Chongqing, Manila. So things are getting restarted already, and we have to highlight these in our reports, in our media, to overwhelm the anti-China propaganda that continues to be sustained despite being discredited in the past few months. So I think we're now ready for our first speaker, Dr. Li Ji, Assistant Dean, China Institute for Development. In the paper I presented, which you can download from the internet too, I just highlighted the 3 opportunities that Dr. Li presented. First, the first opportunity is that building a modern industrial system doesn't mean building all industries for ourselves and by ourselves, meaning China.
Is China's.
In other words, what Dr. Li will be stressing later on is we want to upgrade together with regional partners. In other words, if we are buying today BYD electric vehicles, why shouldn't we be building BYD electric vehicles with China in the Philippines? If we are setting up solar farms in the Philippines, why aren't we building solar panels with Chinese companies in the Philippines, joint venture?
Yep.
Why don't we proceed now with the proposed, during Duterte's time, Rodrigo Duterte's time, the 60-40 joint venture, oil gas joint venture for the Recto Bank or Reed Bank resources. The second point that Dr. Li will be stressing is the second opportunity Dr. Li says I can think about is the so-called upgraded high-quality Belt and Road. During the 15th five-year plan period, Belt and Road cooperation will get higher quality. In other words, they'll be improving it.
Yes.
In Africa, in Southeast Asia, Dr. Li says we're not just building roads and bridges anymore, we're bringing China's green development experience. In the Philippines, of course, our sad experience in the past 2 years is that we saw the Philippine government cancel the joint oil and gas venture with China. We have seen the Philippines cancel the South Luzon rail line. We have seen the Philippine government cancel the Mindanao Circumferential Railway, all to the tune of billions of dollars that this pivot to America caused to be canceled. The third opportunity Dr. Lee stresses is on the dinner tables. He says, I mentioned China's strong domestic market. The door of the market is opening wider and wider. In the next 5 years, China will implement zero tariff treatment for more developing countries across the world. So in conclusion, he will say, dear friends, China's 15th five-year plan isn't just a blueprint for Chinese people's better lives. It's an invitation letter to the world. It announces China's promise of openness, inviting partners from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and globally to get in the fast-going train of China's development and share the opportunity with the Chinese people together. Our second speaker will be dwelling on the technology and the two sessions. I think we will now watch the prepared video of Dr. Lee.
Okay. Yep. It gets flashed the prepared video of Dr. Lee to give us an idea of China's two sessions and how it can be not just a solo, but a chorus for the whole world, an opening for the whole world to take advantage of.
Hello everyone, I'm Li Zhi from China Institute for Development Planning at Tsinghua University. Today I'm really glad to have this chance to chat with you about China's development planning. Both myself and my institute have been lucky enough to be involved in consulting on several of China's five-year plans. So I have got some first-hand experience about this important economic administration instrument of the government. So today I'm happy to share with you what I know. You have probably heard the term five-year plan in the news, especially since China's National People's Congress just approved the 15th five-year plan recently. But what exactly is it? And what does China's roadmap for the next 5 years have to do with you and your country? Today I want to skip the complicated official documents and break it down simply. Firstly, China's five-year plan isn't some kind of Soviet-style economic command or planned economy. It's a kind of dynamic grand strategic design. Every 5 years, we set new targets with timelines, roadmaps, toolkits, and project lists. You can think of it as a compass. It's a unique macroeconomic management tool that evolved from economic practice. It connects grand strategy with annual targets and specific policy through scientific planning methods. And to be honest, I think there are still a lot of academic value that hasn't been fully explored and researched yet. The development plan isn't cooked up by officials sitting in a room. It's built on a lot of input from managers, entrepreneurs, academics, and regular folks, using scientific methods such as statistics, projections, even AI. Then it goes through the National People's Congress for review and approval. China has a great tradition called open door planning. For example, regarding this 15th five-year plan, our President Xi Jinping specially stressed combining top-level design with public input. Just through online channels, we got over 3 million suggestions from ordinary people. After checking them carefully, more than 1,500 ideas were put into the plan and became the national policy. From deliverymen to university professors, everyone's voice gets heard and turns into national action. That's a kind of Chinese democracy in action. Because of this solid public foundation and scientific management, China has been able to run like a relay race, 5 years after 5 years, sticking to one blueprint all the way through. And we have created the remarkable achievements you see today. So, in 2026, what will be different about the next 5 years? We can say the world today isn't exactly stable, and the international landscape has shifted dramatically. China has reached a critical crossroads. We need to shift our economy from big to strong, while facing a very complex environment. So if I had to summarize the 15th five-year plan's biggest feature in one sentence, it should be: we are forging our own path through technology innovation and offering the world a development certainty amid the storm and headwind. If the past 14th plan was about sowing seeds and taking root in areas like innovation, digital economy, and green ecology, then the next 15th plan is about blooming and bearing fruit. We are not going to keep following. We are trying to lead in more fields. The goal is clear. By 2030, we will take a huge step in economic strength, technological capability, and comprehensive national power. This isn't just China's goal. It will also benefit the global economy. Now let me spend some time on the most exciting parts of this blueprint: how we are going to build a brand new and stronger China. Hereby, I have some stories to share with you. The first one is about technology. You know, the Spring Festival is China's most important holiday. This year, at the gala celebration, martial arts performing robots were very popular on global social media. Many foreign friends were amazed by China's technology development. However, what they may not know is that China's development plans provide rich scenarios for such kind of technology advancement. It helps to turn some cutting-edge concepts into real products and drive more innovation. That's the policy foundation for China's so-called new quality productive forces. In the next 15th five-year plan, we will put the modern industrial system into a very important position. That means we are trying to hatch some kind of game-changing economic development patterns. Except the amazing robots, we will get the air taxis, which is also known as the low-altitude economy. And also we will have the brain-computer interfaces that can read neural signals. And we will use solar and wind power to turn the deserts into energy oceans. All these new technologies will help to make our life better. For example, let's think about the self-driving vehicles. Today, in Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen streets, they're already not rare. In the next 5 years, you will see more cars without steering wheels, and you might get used to hopping into a taxi with no driver. These changes will be backed by many high-end technologies such as AI, advanced manufacturing, and big data. Our government encourage such kind of innovation by policy planning and strategic support. So by 2030, it's estimated that the AI-related industries will grow up to over $1.4 trillion. That will be a magnificent opportunity. My second story is about a greener China. Everyone knows China committed to carbon peaking and the carbon neutral goals. The next 5 years will be the critical 5 years to hit those targets. In the north part of China, we are building new energy bases on deserts and Gobi, like solar cities. It will help turning dry land into a big and clean battery. At sea, rows of massive wind turbine generators will convert sea breeze into electricity for millions of households by 2030. 1 of every 4 kilowatt energy we use will come from wind, solar, or other clean energies. This isn't just for bluer skies and cleaner water in China. It's driving down green technology costs for the whole world. Remember that the solar panels were used to be very expensive, right? But why are they cheap now? Because Chinese manufacturing boosted efficiency, letting friends in all countries enjoy affordable clean energy. That's especially critical today with traditional fossil fuel supplies threatened by geopolitical chaos. My last story is about the visitors and the tourists. We have noticed lately that there are more and more foreigners coming to China since visa-free policies kicked in. Weekend trips to China have become the new trend for many young foreigners, especially those from our neighboring countries. I have a good friend from Indonesia who lived in Jakarta for ages, and now he is based in Guangzhou. He told me that the city is so modern and so convenient. Whatever you want to eat, whatever you want to play, you can easily find it. And also the city is super safe and clean. He's currently planning to settle down in China for good. So why are so many foreign friends choosing to live here? Because we are building a strong domestic consumer market. China has over 1.4 billion people, with more than 400 million in the middle income level, and that number keeps climbing. When life gets better, people naturally want to eat better, have more fun, and enjoy more convenience. That's why the 15th five-year plan put heavy emphasis on expanding domestic demand, unlocking China's consumption potential, while also creating a safer and more regulated consumer environment. China's market is like a giant magnet. It's attracting goods and services from all over the world, and naturally it will attract more and more consumers who want to come here, live here, and be part of here. Till now I have talked about China's planning, but you are probably wondering, China is getting stronger, but what's that got to do with me? Especially for friends in Asia and Africa, where are the opportunities? Let me tell you, it will be a huge opportunity. The 15th five-year plan has a whole chapter on expanding high standard opening up. China's opening isn't a solo. It's a chorus with the world. The first opportunity is that building a modern industrial system doesn't mean building all industries for ourselves and by ourselves. We want to upgrade together with regional partners. So think about our law friends. In recent years, through the China Laos Railway, they have shipped many minerals and agricultural products to China, hugely boosting their local economy. In the next 5 years, this kind of cooperation will go deeper, and we are developing a robotic industry. While Vietnam and Thailand have a strong advantage in electronic manufacturing and auto assembly. So China's automation equipment and industrial robots can reach these countries with affordable and efficient, and it will help them to smarten up their factories. That's a kind of mutual progress. Another example is China and South Korea both face a common social challenge, aging populations, what we call the old problem. We need to care for our elderly seniors with more affordable and smarter method. There is big room for China and Korea to cooperate here. China's robotic technology and South Korea's smart elderly care systems can combine together to develop robots that chat with seniors and deliver medicines and monitor health conditions. That will be a kind of trillion-dollar market solutions. The second opportunity I can think about is the so-called upgraded high-quality Belt and Road Initiative. During the 15th five-year plan period, Belt and Road cooperation will get higher quality. In Africa, in Southeast Asia, we are not just building roads and bridges anymore. We are bringing China's green development experience. For example, in Egypt, for the major projects we are building are not just engineering. We will export advancing technology and higher standard. China's experience of building solar plants in deserts and Gobi can absolutely help Egypt develop its vast deserts into powering factories with clean energy. The wind projects we are helping Kenya to build are giving local cheaper and more stable green electricity. That's turning China's green technology into green opportunities for every country. Opportunity 3, I think, will be on the dinner tables. I mentioned China's strong domestic market. The door of market is opening wider and wider. In the next 5 years, China will implement zero tariff treatment for more developing countries across the world. What does that mean? It means that the Thai durians, Vietnam basa fish, and Kenyan avocados and Ethiopia coffee and some agricultural products from Nepal and Pakistan will go into China's market at lower cost and more competitive. Chinese consumers are willing to pay for high quality agricultural products. So in the next 5 years, we will see more and more agricultural products from Asia and Africa crossing oceans to appear on Chinese family dinner tables. For farmers and exporters in Asia and Africa, that will be real cash. Dear friends, China's 5-year plan isn't just a blueprint for Chinese people's better lives. It's an invitation letter to the world. It announces China's promise of openness, inviting partners from Asia, Africa, Latin America, and globally to get into the fast-going train of China's development and share the opportunity with Chinese people together. Thank you.
Dr. Li Ji, for that very long but at the same time very enlightening aspect of China's successions and how it
Before we go to Dr. Chan.
and how it can how we can benefit from this potentially in the future administration.
Yeah, I was just informed by Dr. Lee that he is called to a meeting, so he cannot join us for a question and answer.
Okay.
So we'll proceed directly to, if Dr. Henry Chan is ready, can we check? Is he on? Henry Chan is ready. It's a bit early, so he is in the Zoom room, but he may not be monitoring yet. Can you message him?
I can intervene.
Okay, in the meantime, Kanda would like to add something.
Yeah, while we're waiting for Dr. Chan, I'd like to welcome Ado Paglinawan, who just is our Vice President for Internal Affairs for the Asian Century Philippine Strategic Studies. And he will give us a reaction on Dr. Lee and Kamentong's presentation on the two sessions and how the China's two sessions, how the Philippines can benefit from this.
Henry Chan is requesting to turn him on. I don't know.
Yeah, please, we'll just do for 15
Yeah.
minutes, 10, 15
Yeah,
minutes.
15 minutes.
Okay. Herman Laurel presented a very rosy and positive picture of the opportunities that are facing not only the Philippines but the entire Southeast Asian countries. And in this time of the year, the two sessions of China basically highlights how policy making is further validated bottoms up from the very low publics going up to every stage of government level until it reaches the consideration of the two sessions. This is a model which a year ago we discussed in this very same assembly, and we said that it should be a model for the Philippines. Because ironically, in the Philippines, it is not only not bottoms up, but top down. And worse, the top controls more than 90% of the resources and profits of our endeavor, and only 5 to 10% filters to the common tao. So, may I present the other side of this perspective? Because the opportunities presented, first, on the level of industrialization. Second, on the level that the Belt and Road Initiative will bring about new technologies, new products. And thirdly, new markets. And lastly, improve the situation of food on the table for the common citizen. Fortunately, China is going north, but the Philippines is going south. We seem to have boarded the wrong bus. And this traces to January 2023, when we were on the right bus. When our President Bongbong Marcos visited China and was pledged by Xi Jinping $23 billion in investment, infrastructure, loans, and whatever. We were on the right track for only a few weeks. That was January 2023. By February 3, Bongbong Marcos made an unholy pact with the evil regime of the United States by signing 4 additional sites to the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agency. There is really nothing wrong about maintaining relations with the United States. But why do I refer them as an evil empire? Because by signing 4 additional sites to the EDCA, they embargoed China's basically economic contributions to the country. The first thing that Bongbong Marcos forgot, 17 billion that were promised to Duterte, mainly for products that were on the pipeline. And I can mention some of this to you. Tamentong already mentioned the 3 railroad projects. The one that would bring Metro Manila from Batangas to Bicol. The one that would give the Mindanaoans their own railway system. and the one that would link Subic and Clark. Those are only three. What was abandoned also was a loan for perhaps the longest bridge in the Philippines that would link Cavite and Bataan. And this is where the tearjerker begins. In the dying months of the Duterte regime, his very own Secretary of Foreign Affairs jumped the 60-40 deal, oil and gas sharing for the exploitation of the Reed Bank. BBM could have very well twisted it, because here in the 18th century we have already provided the supra-constitutional solution, because the 60-40 cannot be solved under our constitution. What do? We go over the constitution, enter into a treaty with China, and therefore, on the basis of international law, we can implement the 60-40. But you know the profile of our Congress and senators, where intelligence quotient is terribly missing. So what happens? What happened? Not only did they embargo the Chinese opportunities, 23 billion plus 7 billion in the pipeline was 40 billion. They also implemented projects that would render reputational costs to China. Initiatives like the Transparency Initiative, which is actually a false flag operation to bait China into belligerency so that they can qualify the label that they give China, that China is a bully. Unfortunately for them, the Chinese Coast Guard is perhaps one of the most professional Coast Guard force, and it only dealt with them in every measured way that they could be confronted. Now, between that time and in 2025, we suffered internally the worst, I would say worst, event in our history, which was the 1.5 billion or trillion flood control blunder. Approaching 2026, they were already realizing their mistakes. They spent too much time delving with security and deterrence and defense issues. They forgot the common people. They forgot economics. They forgot the food on the table. And so, if only to serve as perhaps a diversion, they allowed the DFA, the Department of Trade, the Department of Tourism to implement the electronic visa policy with China and offer visa-free entry to the Philippines for 2 weeks for Chinese tourists. Why was this a very sensitive issue? Because from 2017 to 2019, we had already 4 million Chinese tourists. That was Duterte's landmark. But from 2023 to 2025, we did not even make 1 million Chinese tourists. Not even 1/4. And that's why, as you now see, Secretary Frasco has lost her job. So, did they stop? These people who are shaming China, did they stop? No. They shifted gear, and now They are on the espionage narrative. Anything that they can pin on this narrative, they will do. If you remember last year, they were already exposed for saying that 1,600 Chinese students in Cagayan were spies. Fact-checking said that was fake news. There were not even 1,600 tourists, student tourists from China in Cagayan. There were only 400. And out of the 400, most of them were online, which means that they only go to Cagayan twice to defend their thesis and for face-to-face question and answer with their professor. So not even, at that time, there were not even 100 student Chinese tourists in Cagayan. And now, our inept, incompetent national security advisor is making us believe that they have arrested a Mongolian who enrolled in IBA Zambales, and he was arrested for taking aerial photos of the IBA airport and the Bagsit River. This guy is a tourist. Are we prohibiting our tourists now from taking pictures? I'm tempted to call Eduardo Año an idiot here, you know. Why? Because in his press release, he said that it's prohibited to take pictures near military installations. The nearest military installation from IBA is Subic Zambales, Subic Bay, which is 70,000 kilometers away from IBA. Malapit ba yun? Is that near? That's a 2-hour drive. I know he's not even doing his homework. He's just reading the propaganda that the U.S. Embassy has submitted to him. So I'm questioning the integrity of these people. All right? And now we are caught. In February, we are caught in an international war. Yesterday, going to Cubao, where I am in a hotel, I only take 12 hours because that's only. But I saw Caltex, 104 pesos per liter diesel, 89 pesos gasoline. This morning, coming here, it was already 109 pesos and over 90 pesos for the gasoline. And nasaan ang ating Pangulo when all of this was happening? He was spending 100 million pesos chartering a flight to New York, where he addressed the United Nations vacant seats. Alam niyo ba, halos walang audience si Bongbong Marcos, and I can show you the picture to prove that. Because I worked with the United Nations for the Philippine diplomacy for 2 years. And I know na pagkatapos ng mga personalities, yung mga underlings, yung mga maliliit na actors, pinapayagang umakyat doon, mag-i-speech sila, pero wala kang tao. Wala kang audience. Binilang ko yung audience ni Bongbong, wala pa 50. Empty seats. And he wastes. Walang pera para ilika sa mga OFW natin. Unahan pa sila ng Singapore Air Force. So anyway, enough of this administration that has no plan A and it has no plan B. And the plan C is the American option, a military junta, which will place in, I guess, the Secretary of Defense as chairman, who is even a Malta citizen. Oh my God. This is disaster for the Republic of the Philippines. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kado, for giving us the less rosy picture, the more practical view of what is ahead of us, especially during this dispensation. Now, let us welcome finally.
Yeah, I have questions from Manila Times, but we'll put together all the questions after Dr. Henry Chan. Okay.
Yes, let's welcome now Dr. Henry Chan. Again, he is the distinguished visiting fellow at the Cambodia Center for Regional Studies. And again, as I mentioned earlier, he received his PhD in General Management from Singapore Management University. So let's welcome Dr. Henry Chan joining us via Zoom to give his opening remarks. Welcome.
Welcome, Henry.
Thank you very much, Herman. Thank you very much, Ado, for having me here. It's really a pleasure to talk to the Philippine audience on this very interesting topic of 2 sessions. I am extremely lucky to talk after Professor Lee and Herman. They have put up so good a background on the topic. And here, just to refresh for our audience who are not expert on the Chinese politics and the 2 sessions, I repeat a little bit the introductions. Now, what is 2 sessions? The 2 sessions is the Unknown National People's Congress and Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference in March every year. Now, it's the most important political events in China every spring. The 2 sessions are convened simultaneously with the openings and closings staggered by 1 day apart. In this year, the 2 sessions run for 7 days. NPC was held 1 day after the CPPCC, and this is one of the most watched events in Chinese political events of the years. Now, the other event that is also very important in the Chinese political calendar is the party plenum, which is always scheduled in autumn, either late October or early November. Now, the 2 sessions provide a very important forum for the world to understand China and its policy. Now, between the 2, actually, these 2 sessions is gaining more importance because the second party plenum is a party event. It's only attended by around 300 party delegates together with state media. It's not open to the world. But this one was attended by more than 3,000 delegates to the 2 sessions, plus more than 3,000 international and domestic journalists. So to many outsiders, actually, the 2 sessions is the most important thing to watch in China. Next slide, please. Can you post next slide? Okay, I will continue even without the slide. Now, actually, the focus of all the NPC meeting is the Prime Minister's working report. Now, it highlighted what the government think about the economy, what the government think about the political and other situations. But as you know, in China, the president, who is also the party secretary general, take care of organization and government events. The Prime Minister's job is mainly on economy. So the Prime Minister's working report, everybody keep the focused eye on the economy. Okay? And one thing very clear. Please proceed to the next slide. Now here, as we said, the 2 sessions' main focus is economy. And as you know that China is driving more and more on a development-focused political system. So the figures and the economic targets set is being closely watched. Now, what are the key targets for 2026? 2026, they want an economic growth of around 4% or better. Now, they want an annual urban jobs creation of 12 million. They want a survey urban unemployment rate of 5.5%, a CPA increase of 2%, a personal income growth in step with economic growth, which means that personal income growth this year is targeting 4.5% now. This is real economic growth. This does not include inflation effects. And then the balance of payment is in basic equilibrium. Now, everybody knows that in 2024, China has a world record-breaking trade surplus of 1.2 trillion US dollar and a record current account surplus of 700 billion. So that means to say that even China enjoys this surplus, but they will recycle the funds to the international economy, because the balance of payment is the ultimate account of how much money is left inside China and how much they will bring it out. Now, for the grain output, they have 700 million. Now, there is one thing I want to highlight, which many analysts did not focus, is the carbon dioxide emission per unit of GDP. Now, in this 5-year plan, the Chinese government target a 17% reduction of carbon emissions. Now, compared to the 14th 5-year plan, which is actually running less than 12%, that means to say that Chinese government in this new 5-year plan want an increase of 1% carbon reduction per unit of GDP. So that means China will produce more GDP with much less intensity of carbon input. This is unprecedented and the fastest pace anyone can imagine. Because every year, 17 divided by 5 is 3.4%, but they front-load it to 3.8% in 2026. So this is a very tangible proof that what they are trying to do in the green economy is having very good achievement. No country in human history has ever achieved a consistent 17% carbon reduction in 5 years' time in its economic development. So next slide, please. Now, as we said, there are many major policies announced in the 2 sessions. Now, in these 2 sessions, what are the major policies announced? Somehow, Dr. Lee has touched on it, and Herman has touched on it, but I will repeat here. Now, first, they focused that the new quality productive force will drive the economic growth of China henceforth. Now, what is the meaning of new quality productive force? It means that new quality productive force is a strategic concept emphasizing innovation, high quality economic growth, focusing on advanced industries, green development, and technological breakthrough, rather than traditional labor or resources intensive models. So that is the core meaning of high quality economic growth. It is going to be much environmental friendly, much less input oriented, and then the outcome is that a much greener environment and under a lot of new technological breakthroughs. Now, in this new year's new policies, once again, industrial and technological self-reliance is emphasized. And then also they make it explicit. All the industrial and technological self-reliance is to position itself as a critical national concern. Now, coincidentally, the outbreak of the Middle East war on February 28 and the closure of Strait of Hormuz highlights certain foresightedness of this Chinese policy. After this closure of Hormuz, and if you look at the speed of oil price increase, which is unprecedented, even the 1973 oil embargo, the 1979 Iranian revolutions, we never see the price of oil increasing in such a speed. not because of oil shortage, because the world still have a lot of oil. Strait of Hormuz only close 20%, but because of the choke point effect. So after this, I'm sure that a lot of countries will look at this industrial and technology self-reliance as a backup measure. It is not going to stop globalization because of its very tangible benefit. But every country will now look at its industrial development profile to make sure that even though there's a choke point, the country will not stop. Next slide, please. Now, one thing you can find throughout the speech of Herman, throughout the speech of Professor Lee, okay, 15th five-year plan is mentioned repeatedly. And in the 15th five-year plan, one word is mentioned repeatedly too, is technology innovations. So technology primacy in the 15th five-year plan is very notable. Okay, another thing that is very notable, and it was highlighted in Professor Lee's talk. Now, we are very lucky to have him because he is one of those persons involved in the drafting of the 15th five-year plan. But we must say this is a very collective effort because he has mentioned that they have solicited 3.1 million input. Okay, and out of the 3.1 million input, I think that is still about 1,500 or 2,500 for final deliberations and elaborations before they put in the 15th five-year plan. So commitment to openness is the second point that Professor Lee highlighted, and which is very notable. In fact, one of the very important success of China in the last few years in foreign policy is the opening up of visa-free entries to foreign tourists. This is unprecedented for a socialist or communist country in human history because visa is one of the security safekeeping gate in any countries. And last year, there's a unbelievable 30 million foreign visitors get into China under visa-free scheme. The scale and the magnitude is unseen in the world. Now, another thing is that the new stress is very clear. China now is going to stress on breakthroughs in basic research and foundation technologies. China has committed to increase at least 7% annually in the 15th five-year plan. Okay, now consider last year, China already spent 2.8% of GDP in R&D, and which is already more than the OECD average of 2.7%. So that means to say in 5 years' time, by the end, China cumulatively will increase its GDP, its spending in R&D by 50%. Take away the growth effect of maybe 4 and 5% growth every year. China's spending in R&D will be about 30% in real term over 2.8, which translates to 3.6% of GDP. And then that will make China among the top 5 countries in the world in R&D spending in the world. Of course, everybody knows that Israel, South Korea are the undisputed first two. But 3.6 to 3.8% means China will be even bigger spender on R&D than the United States, than Japan and Germany. This is very significant because one way that I think that, as Herman asked me to talk, is what can the Philippines be benefit from it? And if China is going to be such a huge spender on R&D, definitely tapping Chinese technology and R&D result will benefit the country a lot. Next slide, please. Now, the topic is about economy in the 2 sessions. And there are 3 priorities very important is that traditionally when economy started by Adam Smith, we talk about supply side. Okay, but since the Keynesian revolution after the Depression, we talk about demand side, but the traditional root of the economy is really on the supply side. How to improve the supply, and not on how to pump money into the economy to increase demand. So the three priorities related to the supplies of the economy highlight in this 15 5-year plan is: number one, industrial modernizations; number two, technological modernizations; number three, technological breakthrough. If you look at this is actually the tradition of the economy since the time of Adam Smith until the time of John Keynes. So we are going back to the basics. But again, it seems that if you look at how China was able to weather the US sanctions, and today run this year probably about 1.4 trillion US dollar trade surplus. Okay, that means supply side is really the gist in economic development, which everybody overlook. If, as Ador mentioned about expensive food, expensive everything, how to improve supply side of the economy should again be another focus that we should look at the Chinese experience. Now, another thing very important is this. China is often pictured as a copycat, which is not wrong. Why? If you look at economic development history, everyone started by copying the best in the market. So before you can innovate yourself and be the originator of technologies, you must learn how to be a good copycat. But in this session, it is very clear that there's a growing confidence China can move toward the genuine 0 to 1 innovation, rather than the merely scaling and diffusing existing technologies from 1 to 100. Now, for those non-economists, that is how we do things. When you develop a technology which does not exist, that means that you start from 0. Now, the originator is 0 to 1, and that is where you get your Nobel Prize. Nobel Prize focus on discovering technologies or scientific laws that move from 0 to 1. But a theory, even though you newly discover or a technology, will not bring you products to the market. So how to perfect the chain from new technology discovery to putting a factory, to make it mass production, to ship it to the market and reach the consumer's hand. That is the step 10 or the step 100. So China now seems to be very confident that they can successfully now starting to move from 0 to 1. This sentiment change is very notable from the 2021 when they talk about a 14 5-year plan. At that time, they just talk about industrial modernizations, technological modernizations. The word technological breakthrough was casually mentioned, but not focused. But in this 15 5-year plan, technological breakthrough is very much repeatedly focused. So next slide, please. Now, again, the question that comes to mind is 0 to 1 is not easy, because 0 to 1 means to say that you are going to go to a new form of organizations, a new form of educations, a new form of ecosystem building of the industries, because everybody knows it is always easier to copy than to discover. Okay, so one parameter I use, because in academic work it's very hard. So there's a new Australian Strategic Policy Institute, which is a semi-government institute that they start tracking so-called critical technology since 2023. And they are one of the very few that very systematically, based on the published research papers, okay, tracking what are the critical new technology. And many of their terms, I can imagine that you have never heard. In 2023, when they first put it up, they identified many critical areas. In defense, first is defense, aerospace, and space, hypersonic things you mentioned. Energy and environment is the second huge important field. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yeah. And the third is artificial intelligence and computing. The fourth is biotech and health. Next slide, please. And then you have the fifth, robotics and advanced manufacturing, cyber and digital technologies. Next slide, please. And then you have quantum technology, advanced material, and other key enabling technologies. Note, these 9 technology fields are considered so-called critical technology for future economic and technological breakthroughs. Now, based on the inaugural Australian study, next slide, please. Before I go to the tracking. Now, in 2025, they do an update, and they add another 10 technologies. So from original 64 technology, 9 major fields, now they add 10 technologies, which become 74. So this is what is important. Many things that I'm sure people just look into it. Now, of course, everybody knows that last week, China approved the world's first brain-computer interface, addressing those Alzheimer patients whose hand movement cannot do. Okay, that improves the hand movement of those Alzheimer or stroke patients. Okay, so, and of course, everybody now realize that fusion is the talk. So out of the 74 fields, how is China doing? Next slide, please. Now, in the inaugural tracker of 2023, out of the 9 main fields and 64 categories of subfield, China led in 52 out of 64 technology areas. And in the expanded 2025 set, out of 74, the number stood at 66. Now, what do you mean by leadership? The leadership is that the Australian Institute, using big data to scan all the published research papers, and they have a team of researchers helping them to really look for those technological meaningful research papers, and they base their ranking, their trackers, on the number of research papers that is accepted as critical technology for future papers. Okay, now shall we use it to say that China is leading? Yes and no. Why? Because this is about 4th industrial revolution technologies. This does not include 3rd industrial technology, which is actually today still very foundational, such as advanced semiconductors, machine tools, and jet engines, in which the United States, the Europeans, the Japanese are still leading. But what this thing highlight, what I'm trying to use ASPI critical technology tracker to highlight is the Chinese objective of 0 to 1 is not baseless. They actually has built a very good base for breaking through in the 4th industrial technology era. Next slide, please. So as we said, there are many imperfections because it's the sole leadership, is the number of papers. However, it's a very useful reference because I cannot find any others. Now, actually right now, the race is the speed, the breadth, and the depth of the technology revolution means that translating technology into sustaining productivity gain and subsequent economic transformation needs a very strong ecosystem that can dynamically integrate firms, researchers, institutions, policies, and allied networks to transform laboratory discoveries into economic outputs and individual capacities into network advantages at speed and scale. Now, this is very important. This is probably the area in which the developing countries can tap this industrial revolution's fruit. In what way? Because of the technology race between China and US, they must hurry up to build their respective technological ecosystem. And developing countries can actually focus on contributing their human talent to help in the building up of the ecosystem. This field is wide open because this is a green field. And the technological rivalry between the Chinas and the United States means both of them needs a lot of good human power, and which developing countries can help. Next slide, please. Now, this is the issue. If you look at this transformation map, you have technologies, then technologies, new discovery 0 to 1 will drive innovations. Innovations will drive productions. Production will drive innovation output and contribute to national capacity. Okay, and as we said, this is the greenfield area. All developing countries can contribute, though they will not be the main players. But because of the expanding universe of ecosystem, everybody somehow somewhat has a chance. So if you look at those 74 areas of critical technology, you will find out climate change is one of the most critical. And if you look at the flooding problem now, the country is experiencing more and more intensity. We get a longer drought. We get more intense rainfall. All these climate change mitigation measures need scientific input. Okay, and very interesting to note is China now is in the forefront of climate change scientific research. That is the conclusion I get in my exchange with the American climate scientists. Up to about 15 to 20 years ago, the Chinese scientists went to the United States to study climate change. And right now the job is now a reverse. The American scientists go to China to study what they are doing on climate change. Okay? And of course, everybody knows the AI issues. And I must remind you, AI, every industrial revolutions always bring two problems. One is employment, the other one is income distribution, which is just common sense. Why? Because in an industrial revolution, a lot of old skills become obsolete. So you have unemployment problems. Another thing is that in an industrial revolution, the one who controls the new technologies will have productivity improvement so fast that they will capture all the income generated from the economic activities. So you have people who knows technology getting more rich, and people who does not understand technology getting more poor. So you have income distribution problems. This thing has happened in the first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, and now in the fourth industrial revolution, in which the core technology is AI and robots. This thing is actually being accelerated because the speed of technology adoption today just dwarfs all the earlier three industrial revolutions. Okay, now for our audience who is not familiar with technology, the signature technology in first industrial revolution is, as everybody knows, steam engine. The second one is internal combustion engine and electricity. The third one is internet and microcomputers. And now the fourth one is becoming a little bit more clear now, is going to be AI and robotics. But if you remember, first industrial revolution take 80 years to affect the mass population and trigger the European Revolution 1848. Steam engine was supposed to introduce in 1776, so up to 1848, almost 100 years. The second one, electricity and internal combustion engines, take almost 40-50 years to become popularized. In the third one, it's shorter, but still 5 to 10 years. But right now, you must remember, your ChatGPT came out just less than 2 years ago. And now, how many people using ChatGPT? So next slides, please. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm sorry for taking all your time, and I'm ready for your open forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chan, for your very comprehensive and enlightening presentation on China's two sessions, what it means for the rest of the world. We have three questions for you, one from the Manila Times. The first question is, how can the outcomes of the two sessions help address food security challenges in the Philippines, particularly in terms of agricultural technology transfer or fertilizer exports?
I will put it this way. Actually, you remember in my talk, I focus on supply-siders, supply-side economy. So supply-side economy is that before Philippines focus on what China can help, Philippines probably have to focus on what are the shortcomings on our domestic input factors. I think number one is that we need much more educated and quality farmers. Because if you remember, the study of the Philippines is that average age of Filipino farmers is around 58. Okay. Now, no matter what you want China to help you, please get the right people to be good learners who can speedily adopt the technologies. In fact, there's a very big difference between Chinese agricultural help and those multinational help, because I was told the Chinese technicians is willing to go to the field to teach the farmers what is being done on the field. And many international agricultural assistants, the experts sent here, most of the time, they spend in the class lecture room teaching farmers. So I would feel that number one, I would suggest to the Philippines that improve our input factors. And number two, you cannot ask China, what can you give us? Rather, we should be the one to tell the Chinese, please teach me what. So when we are very focused students, we ask exactly what we want from China. And I'm sure China is more than willing to teach us. But we cannot just open a blank check and say, what are you going to give me? I'm sorry to say that, but that is my observation on the field. Now, about the fertilizer, that is really very tricky issues. You know, China banned all the fertilizer export after the Gulf crisis, which is a very country the right way. And I'm a little bit worried because you must remember, spring planting normally is about April, May. So the time we are going to fertilize the field is around 2 weeks to 1 month before the planting. Now is the most critical time. So this is really a dilemma. I don't think China is going to help you because they also need the fertilizers. This is the on season. This is not the off season. Okay.
Chan, for enlightening us on what we can do. Number one, supply chain, supply side, very important. And number two, it's us Filipino learners. We have to take the initiative to really learn about agriculture and encourage. The state should incentivize young learners on, especially in education, to teach them agrarian, agricultural literacy, etc. Second question is, with China's new growth phase with the two sessions, this will open doors for more Filipino professionals like engineers, researchers, and teachers, and high-skilled labor. What kind of upskilling, what skills should the Philippine workforce prioritize now to meet the demand that is being created by the two sessions?
Now, if you look at this focus mentioned, they are talking about industrial modernizations. In fact, for your information, World Economic Forum already has a so-called Lighthouse projects. That means that these factories, the setup was really tailored to fourth industrial revolution requirements. The first of which is digitalizations. You must digitize your factories. Now, for your information, China has the most number of Lighthouse factories. They still talk about modernizations. I think we have to really shift to a more engineering and scientific oriented minds. I am very sorry to note that our Philippines score in PISA. I used to write for my friends about PISA because this is a very good technological assessment of 15-year-old students. If you understand educations, you will know that before 15 years old, that means before grade 9, anyone who has a base good foundations in grade 9 can choose all what he wants to study in grade 10 to 12 and then subsequent in university. I think that it's very sad to know that we are second to the bottom in the 2018 PISA. Out of 71 countries, Philippines ranked 69. And then in the latest 2022, again, our score is very dismal. Okay, we are counting from the bottom. Okay, so I really feel that this is really high time we look at a more technical educations. I will put it this way. Right now, if you look at the skill set required, it's not just so-called a small artisan type of technology you need, which is unfortunately our orientations. Okay, I think that right now we have to reassess the whole thing, and there are already models around. The German model, the Chinese models, they're all very successful. So look at it that way. Thank you.
Dr. Chan, thank you for that. Another question here, this is from the Daily Tribune newspaper. Can the Chinese government help the Philippine government in addressing the problem of rising price of petroleum products like diesel and oil?
Well, I will put it this way. If you remember when President Marcos Sr. established diplomatic relationship with China in 1976, the Chinese did provide concessionary pricing. Okay. Now, unfortunately, China now is the largest oil importer in the world. At that time in 1970, they were oil exporters. Okay. And you must remember that petroleum is a strategic commodity. Okay. In fact, China announced a stopping of refined oil export, because China now is one of the biggest refined oil center in the world. So I think that you can only ask help within a donor country's capacity. If the donor country itself is in shortage positions, I think it's unrealistic to ask for their help. Now, there's one thing very serious about this Iranian crisis. As we mentioned, you never see in all the 1973 Middle East oil crisis, from the Yom Kippur War, the 1979 Iranian Revolution oil crisis, that the speed of petroleum price increase is that fast. My understanding now is that Manila's diesel price is going to be more than 100 pesos this week, right? And hello, yeah.
My apologies. Something went wrong with the technical.
Okay.
Dr. Chan, since Dr. Lee is not available for us, we also have some questions. We want to get your insights and on. Number one, with Vietnam and Thailand highlighted as strong partners in electronics and the auto assembly, where does the Philippines stand currently in China's regional economic roadmap? What are we to them?
Permit me, I'm a little bit frank. As I said, actually, economics is about how to generate profit for those people engaged in the economy. So supply side factor is very important. Okay, if you look at Vietnam, you'll be very surprised. After Singapore, Where did Vietnam rank in the PISA? It ranks second in ASEAN. It is even higher than Malaysia, Indonesia. Okay, so their labor quality is something that fit in industrial organizations. And as you know, actually Thailand was able to build up an industrial foundation in the 1980s. In fact, that's one of the great missing opportunity in Philippine economic development history, but very few people realize it. After the ETSA revolution of 1986, it coincided with the Plaza Accord of 1985 that all the Japanese factories suffer from the yen appreciation and migrate overseas. The two key beneficiaries at that time was Malaysia and Thailand. They use it to build their industry that can really fit what the world wants. In Thailand's case, it's automotive industry. If you look at all the Toyota, I think the Toyota in the Philippines were all imported from Thailand. If you look at Malaysia, how come it became a semiconductor center? Because all the electronics factory assembly moved to Malaysia. So if you have to look at these industrial foundations, that is the problem. In an age defined by industrial reorganization and modernizations, what can Philippines offer? And again, if you look in it that way, you know where's the main source of our foreign exchange earning? Labor export, BPO, which are all service. So I would feel that we cannot talk about very motherhood statement here. I think we have to look at specifics and identify where Philippines can really contribute. In fact, there's a very serious danger lurking. You must remember our two biggest foreign exchange earners are remittance and BPO. And now, whether you like it or not, some activities in the BPO is under threat with these large language models. So I'm sorry I cannot answer you.
This question is about human capital. China's development plans. This is from Ms. Cathy Cruz from Tuklasan Natin. China's development plans increasingly emphasize high-quality development and innovation. What role do you see for educational exchanges and technical exchanges between the Chinese and Philippine various institutions to build the human capital needed for this new phase of economic cooperation?
Actually, that is one thing that I am very happy to know. Actually, we mentioned that actually China has a little bit change of foreign policy. If you look at 2023, they started opening up in November. Because I live in Singapore, I know the story. Up to about June, July of 2023, even Singapore used to enjoy visa-free entry. But it was stopped during COVID. And after COVID, China focused on reciprocal treatments. So Singapore's visa-free entry to China was stopped actually in the middle of 2023. But at the end of 2023, China changed policy to allow visa-free entries. So that means to say that China now actually want to focus on people-to-people exchange. And again, this is what I want to focus. If China still encourage people-to-people exchange with the Philippines, look at what are the area we have good students. Because I'm very lucky that I work in think tank and I have good exchange with a lot of educators. If we want to learn to improve our upskill, first look for good students. And after good students, then we look for what we want them to study. So I'm very sure that there's a lot of goodwill between China and US, between those top universities like University of the Philippines, Ateneo, De La Salle. So I will first canvass what resources we have, what are the human talent we have, put them in physical science field. Remember that is what NVIDIA's Jepsen Huang recommend. Put more focus on physical science education because that is where you will have a huge productivity gain. and any talent came back from overseas exchange in China, that they can prove that they can build up new industries. Okay, they can be very receptive partner of the Chinese industries migrating overseas. That's it. It's actually a very difficult process, but how to get things right is the key. Thank you.
The final question from Ms. Kathy Cruz is, as someone involved in development planning at Xinhua is not from here. That's for Lida. Okay, what are the key methodologies in your view or philosophies behind China's very successful long-term planning, like 5-year plans? What lessons from this process could be valuable for our policymakers and economic managers?
Actually, this is one thing I want to spend a little time from my personal observations. Policy continuity is very important. Actually, even China announced a 5-year plan. You must understand they have people that keep on fine-tuning the plan. Because you must remember, who knows what is going to happen tomorrow? You must remember until February 27, everybody still think that there's going to be a deal between Iran and the US. Then 28 came. Okay, so what I mean is this: policy continuity is very important. Now, unfortunately, if you look into the presidential system, and particularly in the Philippines, every 6 years you expect a blanket change of everything, including a lot of those so-called working level officials. That means assistant secretary levels. They are supposed to be the workhorse. They are supposed to be the one carrying the so-called institutional memory. Now, they're all being replaced. So there's a lot of things that we have to think about. And if there's anything, is that number one, Chinese are pragmatics. They do fine-tuning all the time. So what you learn today about the 15 5-year plan in next year, you will see a different way of implementing it, except the objectives stay the same. But the path and the measures differ every day. We need continuity in governance. I don't mean that political leadership can be changed, because that is reflecting supposedly the mandate of the people. But let us keep the working level government in a more stable shape, so that government objective, government measures, how to fine-tune the programs can be done. Of course, we must say that there are a lot of things that is beyond politics. Like, how aspire is your people to educations? How many burning candles do they willing to go? How many examinations are they willing to sacrifice for? All these are very basic issues. But continuity and pragmatism, I think, are the two key secrets behind the Chinese success in their 5-year plan.
If I may share at this point some thoughts with Dr. Chang. Actually, the Philippines set a new course when in the election of Rodrigo Duterte, a new course away from the EDSA 1 revolution of 1986, the so-called Yellow Revolution, and February 1986. And Rodrigo Duterte set off a new course by declaring, I am separating from America. And there was supposed to be continuity because of the unity between
Marcos Jr.
Marcos Duterte, Sara Duterte. But that was broken, that was shattered by what? The intervention of the United States of America. And the whole direction that was set during the Rodrigo Duterte's time was overturned.
Interrupted.
Not just interrupted, overturned.
Overturned.
So one may say that our political system in the Philippines took a very long time, around 30 years, to change from Cory Aquino to Rodrigo Duterte back to the independent foreign policy. But the intervention of the Americans caused this abrupt disruption of that new direction. So the system is a problem, but it is not being allowed to correct itself, which happened already in the Rodrigo Duterte's time. It was correcting itself, but it was subverted by the Americans. That is why the key problem for the Philippines and the Filipino people
Fifth column.
is the subversion by the Americans using the fifth column inside the country,
Yeah.
the American proxies, or what I would prefer to call the American chihuahuas in the Philippines.
Yeah, with on that point by Dr. Chan, we don't have continuity precisely because in the system, as opposed in China, they plan for 5 years for development, and there's a stable policy, doesn't change that much. But in the Western style democracy that we have here, they're planning for, like what you said, every 6 years for elections and not for national development.
Yeah. If I may add to that, Danny, it's not just the Western style system. It is the neo-colonial Western style system. In Europe, for example, you can call them also Western style democracy, European democracy. Change may be slow, but it is coming. It is happening with the decline of Macron, Merckx, and so on. Despite the American intervention there. But in the Philippines, while we are talking now, the Americans are plotting a coup me scenario to perpetuate the Marcos BBM policy under a new guise, maybe Gibo Teodoro and so on. That is why there's an all-out campaign against Sara Duterte's return in the 2028 election. But I just want to make this, stress this point, that it is the American intervention that is the root problem. Of course, Ado, the microphone.
Actually, I agree with the comment though. And being the Vice President for Internal Affairs, I think this forum has provided very clearly that China is the solution. China has the capability, the capacity, the resources, the opportunities in all fields, from financial to technical to industrialization, to actually putting products in the market and products for trade. My problem is, does this government of President Marcos Jr. President Marcos Jr. have the courage to at least balance our foreign policy? Because I will not ask him if he has the courage to stop the U.S. intervention, because I know he does not have that. Because he is a jelly. Can he at least, in the name of the constitutional mandate of independent foreign policy, balance it? Why? Because I've already enumerated earlier. We are not just in a remedial situation, we are in a crisis situation. And the saving grace, there is a saving grace. All the opportunities is in front of Marcos Jr. They have delivered more or less $17 billion pledged to Duterte. All we have to do is bring back the projects. And then the 23 billion pledge of Xi Jinping. These are still available. But I have not heard, by the way, Duterte even left a bilateral consultative mechanism. I think we have had 10 or 11 sessions already under this BCM mechanism. Wala akong narinig na ina-activate si Teresa Lazaro.
No, the BCM has been reactivated.
Huh?
BCM
it has been reactivated.
Okay, then that's good news. Alright. But, meron ba tayo next question. Kung balanse na ang attitude natin, do we have the absorptive capacity? To absorb the 17 plus 23 billion US dollars from China. And just, it's in a silver platter. Walang kondisyones. Alright? And the third thing is, do we have the political will to stop all the shenanigans in our local politics and put the people first than this impeachment? Okay, we can wait a little bit for the investigation of the plunder because there is a national emergency before us. But please, hurry up on these bilateral consultative mechanisms.
Okay.
Revive. Ang problema dito, baka mas malalim ang problema natin. Baka wala tayong sa gobyerno ngayon na intellectual capacity. Yan ang problema.
We'll have to go back to the 2 sessions and the lessons that we can learn from it. I think what we're saying now is we can learn if we have a change of government. So yun ang problem. But anyway, we are preparing the change of government for these lessons. And that is why we're discussing it with the public. There's a question from our Facebook audience. How does the Middle East war affect China's technological advancement in agriculture, if any at all? Henry.
I'm sorry, when you are talking, I think I'm in the wrong session. Let us focus on 2 sessions here. Now, because, I'm not a political expert, but I'm one economist. Now, the way I look at it is this. Actually, this Middle East crisis has opened a lot of new thinkings, I presume. Now, I must say that first. Everybody realized that so-called self-sufficiency is not shutting out others, but a very important national survival skill. Now, I think more and more people already said, actually, China is the least affected in this Middle East crisis. And actually, if you look at how Philippines, Thailand are doing, and Bangladesh, we cut the office work to 4 days. Okay, this is something that we never did, except during the COVID time. And number 2, if you look at the food prices, if you look at the planting season on fertilizers, and I was in Singapore, but I was shown a picture that people in the newspaper that there's much less traffic today in Manila because of the stop no work policy in a way. But all these are actually very sad things to note. I really feel that the country is probably in a kind of crisis because this is the planting season and then you have fertilizer. I don't know whether that is enough or not. But the livelihood is that we have very little oil storage. We have very little fertilizer stocks. And then our food prices has been consistently high. And now with all these disruptions, the likelihood of going up higher is here. And of course, we have this political turbulence between the president and the vice president. I really feel that it's really a little bit high time for some emergency contingency measures be drawn up. And as I said, the government finance is the only way now to bridge this critical time. And is the government finance prepared for it? Do you have enough savings in other areas to cover the additional spending that you like it or not, you have to spend to make the society stable? So these are all the things, but there are really very clear lessons from this Strait of Hormuz incident. And definitely the 2 sessions is happening in a time that there were some discussions. And how come China is the least affected by this crisis? There are many lessons I think that we can really draw. Of course, it doesn't mean that we have to adopt them. adopting any policy actually depend on what you have on hand. A good policy to others does not mean it's good policy to you. A poor policy to others does not mean that you cannot do it. So one thing I realized is that when I'm going to answer all the questions, there is really a lot of the way that a lot of our audience is, they always rely on, they want outsiders to help the countries. But I might put it this way, for a country of 120 million, Philippines is too big for anyone to help. So I really feel that we have to look at the supply side of the economy, look at how we can improve ourselves, and as Ado pointed out, our reception capacity, our learning capacity to use all those things in good way. I think this is probably one of the things I really want to emphasize in my talk here. Now let's review ourselves, look at our reception capacities, and go out to ask China for help. Because despite our political difference, it seems that people-to-people exchange between China and Philippines is still being emphasized by both sides. Thank you.
Just want to put again in context our discussion today. We wanted to provide the ray of hope and ray of light in the midst of the darkness of Philippine political and national narrative, to show the way towards future progress and returning to the right path. So our discussion on the two sessions will, of course, echo in the next few days, next few weeks, and on the internet, on replays by other audiences. And we just want to provide that. Well, number two, of course, China will help despite the difficulties it is facing right now with the Iran war. If there is improved relations with China and between China and the Philippines. So this is one of the purposes that we are serving here in our discussion, to show the Filipino people that we have to make an extra effort to repair our relations with China. With that, I will request our moderator to close the proceedings, unless Ado has any last-minute message.
Yeah, just give.
Well, I would like to thank everybody for tuning in, especially our resource person from
Singapore.
and our
Speaker from China.
from China
Tsinghua.
also. We have one. This really opens the horizon towards the future. As I said earlier, China and its allies are going north. The Philippines and our colonial master has taken us south. So there's got to be some real change. And if the present leadership cannot hack it in front of the Filipino people and with the help of the armed forces of the Philippines for a constitutional transition to the vice president, who is more than qualified. She has been honed in crisis. Her guts have been proven in Davao, which is a contentional post. And we hope that even just for this crisis, she is allowed if our president does not want to resign. Because right now, we should go for all the solutions. Tama na muna yung mga dirty tricks. Tama na yung cannibalistic politics. We are not anymore in a remedial situation. We are in a crisis. This is no longer a question of progress. This is already a question of national survival.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ado, for that powerful ending. Okay, again, I'd like to close the forum. Thank you again to Herman Laurel, Ado Paglinawan, Dr. Henry Chan for joining us via Zoom and sharing us your insights. The video message of Dr. Z from Tsinghua University, of course, to the members of the media who asked the questions, people who were joining us in Facebook, YouTube, and the Zoom for the live stream and later for the replay. Have a great rest of your day and have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Henry.
Okay.